After my sister died, I married her husband, Nick Ambrose. That made me the stepmom to my 5-year-old nephew, Jayden Ambrose. Due to my carelessness, I accidentally wore one of my late sister's dresses. In front of everyone, 5-year-old Jayden threw my birthday cake straight at me. He looked down at me, covered in frosting, with the same cold, emotionless stare as his father. "Don't think you can replace my mom just because you married into the Ambrose family," he sneered. "You gold-digging tramp." Then his voice dropped into something darker. "Hateful. I wish it had been you who died. Then we'd be lighting candles for your memorial, not your damn birthday. I swear, when I grow up, the first thing I'm doing is kicking you out of this house." The cake, overly sweet with extra frosting, slid toward the corner of my mouth, but all I tasted was bitterness. I stared at the little boy I had raised with my own hands and, strangely, I just felt done. If a child doesn't love you, maybe it's time to let go. But after I left, both Nick and Jayden came crawling back, full of regret, begging me to forgive them. "Anna, are you sure about divorcing Nick?" Mrs. Fusco asked over the phone, her voice full of concern. "Jayden's still so young. He needs you." I stood at the stove, one hand braced on the counter, and replied calmly, "I married Nick because of the agreement. Jayden's 5 now, he can take care of himself. He doesn't need me anymore." I owed Mrs. Fusco a huge debt. To repay her kindness, I agreed to a 5-year marriage contract. 5 years of playing house, pretending to be the perfect Ambrose wife, taking care of Nick and his son. But the contract ends tomorrow. I'm finally free. Before she could respond, I felt a sharp sting on my forehead. Something hard had hit me. A rock clattered onto the tiled floor. My hands flew up to cover the gash. Blood trickled down my face as I turned to see Jayden standing just outside the window. His arms were crossed, eyes narrowed with disdain. "Snitching to Grandma again? Looks like that little lesson I gave you wasn't enough. I should be sending you to Mom's company." I stared at him, stunned, as everything from just an hour ago came rushing back. It was my 25th birthday. I never celebrated one before, so I treated myself to a small cake. But I accidentally wore my late sister's dress, and the sight of it sent Jayden into a rage. He snatched the cake and scrawled R.I.P. across it with black paint. Then, for the final touch, he stuck white chrysanthemums on top, flowers meant for the dead. My birthday cake had turned into a funeral offering. He laughed, delighted with his work. "You think you deserve a birthday? If it weren't for you, my mom wouldn't be dead. I wouldn't have a broken family. Remember this, from now on, today isn't your birthday, it's your death day." Then, with everyone watching, he slammed the cake into my face and ruined the only day I'd been looking forward to. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just walked to the kitchen in silence. He followed me in, angry that I hadn't reacted. Jayden wasn't satisfied. "What, you upset now?"
"You're so petty," he snapped.
"I swear, when I grow up, the first thing I'll do is kick you out of this house." I looked at him, this child I'd poured 5 years of love and energy into, and felt my heart sink. I was so tired. "You won't need to," I told him quietly. "I'm leaving this house tomorrow." Then I walked out and went to the living room to clean up the wound on my forehead. I was bandaging it when I heard the shattering of glass from upstairs. A chill ran down my spine. I ran up the stairs and found the only keepsake my mother had left me, a jade bracelet, smashed into glittering pieces. The shards sparkled under the light, stabbing into my heart. I dropped to my knees and picked them up one by one, careful not to cut myself. I hadn't cried when Nick's parents gave me hell for years. I hadn't cried when Nick treated me like a stand-in for my sister, using me for stress relief, and never anything more. I didn't even cry when Jayden publicly humiliated me with a cake. But now, looking at the broken bracelet my mom left me, I broke. The tears came fast, hot, and uncontrollable. That bracelet was the last thing I had from someone who truly loved me. Jayden stood nearby, watching me crumble. Then he smirked. "Hurts, doesn't it? Having the one thing you care about destroyed? That's what you get for killing my mom. Now I'll destroy everything you care about. Murderer." That's when I finally lost it. I grabbed him by the arm and dragged him forward. "You pick all the pieces up now and put them back together." Shock flashed in his eyes. Probably because he had never seen me in such a state. But before he could react, a hand shoved me hard, sending me crashing to the ground. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Nick glared at me with bloodshot eyes. "It's just a bracelet. How could you go off on a kid over it?" I sat there on the floor, stunned, staring up at the man I'd once vowed to love. To him, it was just a cheap piece of jewelry. To me, it was a treasure, the most priceless thing in the world. 10 years ago, there was an earthquake in my hometown. My mother died protecting me. She used her body to shield me from falling concrete. The cement slab pierced right through her.
I lost her that day.
Mrs. Fusco found me years later when I was 15, paid for my schooling, and gave me a future. That's how I ended up here. Nick must have realized he'd gone too far. He pushed Jayden out of the room and closed the door. He came over, lifted me from the floor, and laid me down on the bed, gently brushing away my tears. "I thought you were more mature than this," he said softly. "You shouldn't be lashing out at a kid. You owe Jayden an apology." Then he leaned down and started unbuttoning my blouse. "It's your birthday. Let me make it up to you. Consider it a reward for everything you've done for this family." I inhaled sharply and pushed his hand away. "Nick," I said, voice calm but firm, "I want a divorce. Jayden throws tantrums, and now you too?" Nick's face twisted in frustration. "He's just a kid, but you're an adult. Why can't you try to understand him? Once he grows up, he'll get it." "I'm tired from work. Stop adding to my stress, okay? I don't have the energy to deal with you." I wanted to tell him I didn't need him to fix anything. I just needed him to listen. But to Nick, everything I said sounded like complaining. His eyes turned cold, all traces of desire gone. "I've got work to do," he muttered, storming out and slamming the door behind him. "I'm not sleeping with you tonight." I didn't even bother counting how many times he'd left me like that. At this point, I was nothing more than a convenient toy to him. There when he wanted me, invisible when he didn't. But after tonight, I wouldn't be anyone's toy anymore. I spent the whole night at the table, carefully trying to glue my mother's bracelet back together. It was hopeless, of course. Jade doesn't mend easily. But I still tried. All I had was some cheap superglue and a prayer. By the time I looked out the window, the sun was up. Mrs. Fusco had sent me a message asking me to come over. I threw on a coat and went. She was sitting in the living room when I arrived, her face tight with worry. When she saw me, she sighed. "I heard about what happened yesterday. Jayden's a lot like his dad, stubborn and hard to handle. But you raised him, Anya. There has to be some part of him that cares about you.
Give him time.
He'll understand one day." Then she looked me in the eyes. "Are you really ready to walk away from the family you've built all these years?" Her words gave me pause. But can it still be called a family if there's no love left in it? My thoughts drifted back to Gianna. Gianna and Nick had been inseparable since childhood. Best friends, sweethearts, soulmates. They grew up side by side, went through every phase of life together, and eventually got married. They were the kind of couple people looked at with envy. Until 5 years ago, when Gianna died suddenly. Nick was never the same after that. It was like half of him had died with her. He walked around like an empty shell, neglecting even his most basic needs, and that included their young son. Mrs. Fusco was worried sick. She didn't want Jayden to grow up without a mother's love. But she couldn't just trust anyone to fill that role. She was terrified some random woman would ruin everything. So one day, she came to me with a proposal. Marry Nick, raise Jayden, and be a mother figure to her only grandson. In the past 5 years, I gave everything I had to keep the Fusco household running like clockwork. I raised Jayden into the golden boy everyone admired. I even took on Nick's emotional mess, trying to make life easier for him. But no matter what I did, it never earned me a sliver of their love. To Nick, I was nothing more than a warm body, someone he turned to only when desire hit. The rest of the time, I might as well have been invisible. As for Jayden, he hated me. Because of a few words from outsiders gossiping about me, he hated me with every fiber of his being. Every time he looked at me, it was like he was willing me to die. How could that situation still be called a family? Mrs. Fusco eventually gave up trying to talk me out of leaving. Instead, she handed me the divorce papers and told me that once I signed, I'd finally be free. I couldn't contain the excitement bubbling inside me. I signed the papers without hesitation. By the time I got home that night, it was already dark. I tried using my key, but the lock had been changed. Confused, I knocked on the door, but no one answered. Just as I was about to call the housekeeper, Jayden walked out with his arms crossed, eyes filled with disgust. "Oh, look who finally decided to come home. Why didn't you just drop dead somewhere? Then you wouldn't have to cook for me and Dad anymore." He was mad that I hadn't made his meals today. Jayden's picky stomach and delicate palate made it nearly impossible to cook anything he liked. That's why I'd even taken culinary classes, just to learn how to prepare meals that suited him. Back then, he used to hug me and smile, saying, "Mommy, you're the best chef in the whole world. I want to eat your food forever." But somewhere along the way, everything changed. Now, all he wanted was for me to disappear. Suddenly, thunder cracked across the sky, and rain poured down without warning. Within seconds, I was drenched to the bone. I had nowhere to hide. "Jayden, can I please come inside? I'll catch a cold if I stay out here," I pleaded. He sneered. "You think I care? You wanted to be out so bad. Why don't you just stay out?" "Jayden, who are you talking to?" A woman's voice called sweetly from inside. Valentina Bimes walked over in sky-high heels and wrapped her arms around Jayden's shoulders like they belonged to each other. I watched them walk back inside, their silhouettes warm and close. My chest ached. The boy I raised, the one I poured every ounce of my heart into, couldn't see a thing I'd done for him. Instead, he clung to a hostess Nick brought home just because she looked a little like Gianna. It was too late to find a cab, and the rain kept getting heavier. I curled up in the corner by the gate like some stray dog, trying to shield myself from the downpour. Just when I thought I'd have to sit there all night, the door opened. The housekeeper stepped out with an umbrella. "Madam, Mr. Fusco said you can come in." My mind was half frozen, but I managed to nod and drag myself inside. The first thing I saw was Jayden curled up in Valentina's lap, watching TV, while Nick peeled fruit beside them. They looked like the picture-perfect family. I ignored them and headed upstairs, but Nick stopped me. "You know Jayden's stomach can only handle food you make. From now on, don't stay out for more than an hour." I gave a cold, tired smile and said calmly, "Then you better hire a professional nutritionist soon. Or maybe have Miss Bimes learn the recipes. I've got them written down. We'll be divorced soon, remember?" A sharp clang rang out. Nick had slammed the fruit knife onto the plate, the sound grating. "Arya, have I been too soft with you? Is that why you think you can talk to me like this?" He pushed back his chair and marched over to me, grabbing my wrist in a bruising grip. "You throw the word divorce around like it means nothing. You really think I won't go through with it?" Of course he would. Why wouldn't he? He never loved me. Not really. The only reason he hadn't divorced me already was because of Jayden. He wanted his son to believe he still had a perfect little family. I stayed calm and looked him dead in the eye. "Then maybe you should just ask Jayden if he even wants me around. Ask him if he cares whether we stay together." Right on cue, Jayden's voice cut through the room, dripping with disdain. "Dad, I've been wanting you to divorce her for years. I hate her. I like Aunt V better." Valentina hurriedly covered his mouth. "Jayden, honey, you can't say things like that. It'll hurt your mom." She said the right words, sure, but the sparkle of excitement in her eyes betrayed her true feelings. "She's not my mom. I don't want to murder her as my mother," Jayden shouted, glaring at me with hatred. I shrugged at Nick and said dryly, "There, you heard him. He doesn't want me around. Can we finally get divorced now?" Nick's brows furrowed. He turned to Valentina. "Valentina, take Jayden downstairs." Valentina hesitated, disappointment flashing in her eyes, but she nodded and led Jayden away. I looked at her retreating figure and said again, "You and Jayden both like her. Why don't you make her Mrs. Fusco instead? I'm done with the title." "You're really that eager to throw me at another woman?" His voice was low, dangerous. I stared at him, genuinely confused. What did he even mean by that? He loved Gianna. Everyone knew it. Even after 5 years since her death, he never moved on. He'd never looked at me with affection. I was just a stand-in, someone he used when his body needed something, nothing more. And now, he'd finally found Valentina, someone who looked so much like Gianna, it was almost grotesque. Shouldn't he be thrilled? But instead of answering, his expression darkened. He turned abruptly and barked over his shoulder. "Valentina, come back." She peeked back in, surprised. Before she could ask anything, Nick grabbed her wrist and dragged her down the hall. "You want to see us together, Anya?" he snapped.
"Fine.
"I'll give you what you want." And with that, he yanked her into the bedroom and slammed the door. Not long after, the sounds of moaning slipped through the walls. I felt nothing. I'd never come to this house for love. I came to repay a debt. That was it. I never let my heart get involved, never expected anything more than cold indifference. Nick had always loved Gianna, and now he'd found someone who mirrored her so perfectly, it was almost grotesque. Valentina was his second chance, a living, breathing shadow of the woman he'd never stopped grieving. He should be happy. I checked the time. My flight was leaving soon. Quietly, I slid the divorce agreement under his door, picked up my suitcase, and headed downstairs. But just as I reached the front door, Jayden stepped in front of me, blocking my path. With one sharp kick, he knocked over my suitcase. "What?" A couple harsh words, and now you're storming out. His voice was dripping with contempt. "You think this little act will get my dad's attention? That he'll come chasing after you like some movie scene? You're pathetic." I didn't say a word. I just bent down, calmly picked up my suitcase, and started walking around him. Then, out of nowhere, Jayden grabbed the fruit knife from the table and lunged. He came at me fast, knife angled right toward my chest, his face twisted with anger. "Trying to get me and Dad to notice you like this? You think pretending to leave will make us feel bad? You're disgusting," he screamed. "Trying to make us beg you to stay? Dream on. If you've got the guts, then leave for real. Don't ever come back." His words were venomous, and the knife in his hand gleamed under the light, fueled by a hatred far too intense for a boy his age. I dodged fast, just barely. The blade missed my heart, but I felt the sting as it sliced across my cheek. Hot pain bloomed instantly. Flesh split. Blood beaded and spilled in a slow, sticky trickle down my jaw, soaking the front of my shirt before hitting the hardwood floor in fat crimson drops. Jayden froze, horror flashing in his eyes. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just trying to scare you, I swear. I didn't think it would. Are you okay?" I didn't answer. I raised my hand and slapped him, hard. The sound cracked through the air, like a whip. His head jerked sideways from the force. A bright red mark bloomed on his pale cheek, and for a second, he just stood there, stunned. It was the first time I'd ever hit him. In all these years, I'd endured every tantrum, every cruel word, but this was too far. And it would be the last time I ever laid a hand on him. Jayden's face crumpled. His scream echoed up the staircase. Moments later, footsteps thundered down the stairs. "What the hell is going on?" he barked. Nick appeared, his expression darkening the instant he saw the red mark on Jayden's face. He opened his mouth to yell at me, but then saw my face. His anger froze mid-sentence. His eyes widened slightly, and for a moment, I thought I saw something close to fear in them. Did Jayden do this? Before I could answer, Jayden ran over and clung to Nick's waist, sobbing. "I didn't mean to hurt her. I just wanted to scare her off so she'd leave and not come back." Nick's gaze flicked from me to the knife lying by my suitcase and back again. I braced myself for the usual, the lecture, the blame, the dismissal. But instead, he stepped forward and reached for my hand. "Come on. I'm taking you to the hospital. That cut's deep. You'll need stitches." I jerked my hand away. "Don't bother. I'll take care of it myself. I'll stop by a hospital on the way to the airport. I left the divorce papers at your door. Just remember to sign them." Nick's expression changed in an instant. "How long are you going to stay mad at me?" he snapped. "What did we ever do to deserve this kind of hate from you?" Sure, they never let me go without. I had a roof over my head, a closet full of clothes, and food on the table. They gave me everything except the things that actually mattered. My feelings? Ignored. My opinions? Unheard. My existence? Only acknowledged when they needed something. I was invisible unless I was useful. "I'm not angry, Nick," I said with a tired sigh. "I just want a divorce." He stared at me, lips slightly parted, as if the words didn't quite register. Then he murmured, "Why?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not because I didn't know why, but because saying it all out loud wouldn't change anything. Oddly enough, Nick had spoken more in the past 5 minutes than he had in the last 5 years combined. But it was too late. I picked up my suitcase and turned toward the door. "Arya, if you walk out that door, don't bother coming back." Behind me, his voice came again, louder, sharper. I paused, hand on the doorknob. "But if you stay, Valentina will help take care of Jayden. You won't have to do it all alone anymore. I know these years haven't been easy for you." His tone was clipped, forced, like he was trying to convince himself. "You won't need to handle his food, his schooling. She'll handle it all. You'll just need to play the part of his mother. And my wife. That's it." There was a reason behind that offer, of course. Not emotion. Not love. Obligation. The Ambroses had an unspoken rule. Only one marriage per lifetime. Divorce wasn't just frowned upon. It was disgraceful. Unless one of us died, the marriage had to stay intact, no matter how broken it was. No one in their family had ever divorced. Not once. It simply wasn't done. And now I, the woman from nowhere, was about to be the first to break that rule. For a man like Nick, proud, polished, and obsessed with reputation, this wasn't just a personal blow. It was humiliation, and that he could never forgive. Nick's pride wouldn't survive the scandal of me walking away. But I had made up my mind. Nothing he said was going to stop me. I turned back, looked him in the eye, and said clearly, "I'll pass. Except the first part." Then I walked out. I didn't look back when his voice rang out behind me, mocking, bitter. "I gave you a chance, Arya, but you throw it away. Don't expect me to open that door again when you come crawling back." I paused briefly, took a deep breath, then picked up my pace. As I stepped through the front gates of the Ambrose estate, it felt like a blade sliced clean through whatever thread had still tethered me to that place. I was finally free. I flagged down a cab, loaded in my suitcase, and told the driver, "To Hartsfield Airport, please." The car pulled away from the curb. As I watched the streets blur past the window, my eyes fell on the only thing my mom had ever left me, a simple bracelet. My throat tightened. Finally, I was free. Nick's POV. Back in the Ambrose family's lavish living room, Nick's expression darkened the moment Arya climbed into that cab without even looking back. It was as if a storm rolled through the space, dropping the room's temperature by several degrees. His jaw clenched, and a dangerous stillness settled in the air. Valentina sensed the shift immediately. She slipped her arm through his, pressing close with feigned concern as she soothed, "Mr. Ambrose, don't be upset. If Arya wants to leave, let her go. I'll take good care of you and Jayden from now on." She turned slightly, leaning down to ruffle Jayden's hair with a sweet smile. "Jayden, how about this? Aunt V will buy you all your favorite toys and candy. Would you like that?" At her words, the last flicker of guilt Jayden might have had for Arya disappeared in an instant. He beamed and nodded enthusiastically. "I knew Aunt V is the best. I like you the most. Can you be my new mommy?" Children were simple creatures. They gravitated toward whoever indulged them without limits. They couldn't yet understand that love sometimes meant saying no. Arya, for example, always put rules in place. She limited how many toys Jayden could get, and even then, he had to earn them. Candy was doled out sparingly, just a piece here and there. The rest of the time, she was constantly reminding him to eat proper meals and avoid junk. He didn't appreciate it back then. Over time, those restrictions turned into resentment. Add in the whispers and rumors he overheard, most planted by others, and Jayden had gradually grown to dislike her. Valentina, on the other hand, gave him whatever he wanted with no strings attached. That alone made her a goddess in his eyes. Now that no one was around to say no, he felt giddy with the idea of freedom. No more lectures, no more limits, and no one stopping his dad from being with Aunt V either. With a wide grin, Jayden tugged on Nick's hand. "Isn't it great? Now we can be with Aunt V for real. I'm gonna be the happiest kid in the whole world." Nick didn't flinch. He was certain of one thing. He never loved Arya. Losing her shouldn't feel like anything more than tossing away an old toy. So why, then, was his chest so heavy? Why did her last glance, so calm, so final, linger in his mind like an echo? The longer he thought about it, the more it grated on him. Frustrated, he shook it off and muttered, "I'm tired. I'm going to my room." Valentina caught the shift in his tone. She tried to follow him, but Nick turned and stopped her cold. "Stay with Jayden. Also, speak to the head butler. Starting today, you're in charge of taking care of him." For a second, her eyes widened with excitement. She nodded eagerly, convinced that Nick was finally making her the lady of the house. Nick didn't say anything more. He turned and made his way upstairs, not to rest, but to shut himself in his study. As soon as he sat down, his phone lit up and buzzed incessantly. The group chat with his old friends was blowing up. Someone had tagged him. "Nick dude, did you and Anna get into a fight? I just saw her at the airport, boarding a flight back to her hometown. She had a ton of luggage with her." The message was accompanied by a blurry photo of Arya at the airport gate. Nick frowned, his eyes narrowing as he read. She hadn't wasted any time. She'd gone straight from the Ambrose mansion to the airport, back to her roots. Another message pinged in. "Yo, what happened? That's not like her at all. You two have been married for years. Anna never traveled without telling you. Even when you were too busy to come home, she always brought lunch to your office. She took care of you religiously. Something feels off." "Yes, seriously. She used to stick to you like glue, remember? Even when you ignored her, she still showed up, like a loyal puppy. You couldn't shake her off. Nick stared at the screen, tension pulling at his features. His fingers flew across the keyboard. She wants a divorce. The group went dead silent. Then chaos.
Dude.
You're joking, right? Arya? Divorce you? She worships the ground you walk on. You think she'd just walk away from him too? What about Jayden? She raised him like her own. April Fool's was last month, dude. It's no time for jokes. Everyone here knows how devoted Arya is to you and Jayden. She's basically your house manager, chef, and emotional support system all rolled into one. I just saw her the other day, buying Jayden that rare Transformers model he's been dying for. Didn't she also get you a custom suit? Ask the boutique. I swear. A suit? Nick hadn't known about that. But now that he thought about it, he had mentioned to Arya earlier that he had a formal event coming up and needed to dress up a bit more. He hadn't thought much of it, but she'd remembered and acted on it. He felt a sudden tightness in his chest, more like realization than pain or sadness. He quickly shot back another message. Which boutique was it? The usual, your go-to luxury shop. But dude, seriously, are you not joking? Arya really said she wants a divorce? She's the gold standard of wife material. No way she just pieced out. At first, Nick had believed her. The way she looked at him before she left, serious, hurt, it didn't feel like a bluff. But now, hearing all this, he wasn't so sure. Someone who secretly buys you a tailored suit doesn't just stop loving you overnight. She grabs a limited edition toy for your son? This had to be about what Jayden did at her birthday dinner. That meltdown. That disrespect. Maybe she was just trying to scare them. Make them think she was really gone so they'd feel the consequences. That was it. She wasn't really leaving, she was making a point. Determined to confirm his theory, Nick went straight to the boutique. The staff there remembered Arya immediately. One conversation with the clerk confirmed it. Arya had come in 2 days ago, ordered a custom suit with his preferred fit and color, and made sure they deliver it to his house. His stomach twisted. So she really did do it. She was still doing thoughtful things for him, even while planning to leave. Except no, that wasn't how Nick chose to see it. To him, this only proved one thing. Anna wasn't serious. She was just trying to scare him and Jayden. She wanted to make a statement, push their buttons. That was all. With that belief firm in his mind, the tightness in his chest eased. He opened his phone again, staring at Arya's chat window. A cold smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Of course, she wouldn't leave him. She loved him and Jayden too much. She'd come crawling back, like always. And when she did, he'd make sure she regretted pulling a stunt like this, using divorce as a weapon. She was going to learn her lesson the hard way. Later that evening, he returned home, went into her room, and rummaged through her closet. Sure enough, tucked inside a bag was the limited edition Transformer figure Jayden had been dying to own. She'd managed to snag it for him. He handed it to his son. Your mom bought this. Jayden's eyes lit up the moment he saw the figure. Clutching it tightly, he jumped up with glee, but just as quickly, his smile faded. A sneer tugged at the corner of his lips, as if he'd just figured something out. I knew it, he scoffed. That bitch just couldn't let me go. She probably got this just to butter me up before leaving. She wants me to be grateful, or something. Well, not happening. If she wants to come back, she better crawl back and beg. Nick said nothing. His silence made it clear that he agreed. Over the years, neither Nick nor Jayden had treated Anna well. Anyone else in her shoes would have snapped long ago. But not Anna. She took everything they dished out, quietly, obediently, like it didn't even affect her. She kept cooking, cleaning, taking care of them like a machine on autopilot. She never once brought up divorce. There was no way she'd stay gone for long.
Nick didn't buy it.
A few days, maybe a week, and she'd be back. The thought actually lifted his mood. Later that night, Nick was fast asleep when a sudden dryness in his throat woke him. Still half asleep, he reached out for the usual glass of warm water. It had been there every single night for as long as he could remember. Tonight, though, his fingers met nothing but cold wood. He frowned and instinctively called out, Arya, get me some water. Silence. Anna, he repeated, more impatiently this time. I said get me some damn water. Still nothing. Annoyed, he sat up and turned to bark at her, only to find the other side of the bed empty. For a second, he just stared, then it hit him. She was gone. She had really left. Letting out a frustrated sigh, he ran a hand through his hair and got up to go get the water himself. As he stepped into the hallway, a sudden crack of thunder boomed overhead, making the walls tremble. The sky lit up in jagged flashes of lightning that streaked like spiderwebs across the clouds. A second later, rain came pouring down in heavy sheets, beating against the windows. Thunder and lightning roared in tandem, each one louder than the last. Nick barely flinched. He filled a glass and started back upstairs. But as he passed by Jayden's room, a terrified cry stopped him in his tracks. His expression changed. He threw open the door and rushed in. The lights were off, and the room was bathed in eerie purple from the lightning outside. The effect was haunting. In the far corner, Jayden was curled up, trembling violently, his small body pressed against the wall. A pang of worry hit Nick. He crossed the room and crouched down. "Jayden, it's okay. Daddy's here. Don't be scared." But Jayden's eyes widened in panic. He shoved Nick away and scrambled into the closet, his voice trembling and incoherent. "Don't come near me. Stay away. Stay away." Nick blinked in shock. He knew Jayden had always been a little scared of thunderstorms, but this was a full-blown breakdown. He took a deep breath and tried again, his voice gentle. "Jayden, it's me.
Daddy.
I'm not gonna hurt you. Come on, let's go to my room. You'll feel safer there." At the word "daddy," something in Jayden's eyes softened. Slowly, tentatively, he reached his hand out. Just then, another deafening boom of thunder tore through the sky, and Jayden jerked back like he'd been electrocuted. He snatched his hand away and burst into loud, panicked sobs. "I want mommy. Mommy. Mommy." Nick's jaw clenched. His patience was wearing thin. He stepped forward and tried to pull Jayden out of the closet. "Jayden, stop crying. Come with me." The moment his hand touched the boy, a sharp pain shot through his wrist. He yelped and looked down. Jayden had sunk his teeth into his arm, biting down with all his strength. Blood began to drip from the wound. "Damn it, Jayden." Nick wrenched his arm back, finally prying the boy's teeth off him. Another flash of lightning lit up the room like a strobe light. In that brief second, Nick saw his son's face, eyes wide with terror, lips trembling, blood at the corner of his mouth. "Get away from me," Jayden screamed. "I want my mom. I want my mom." Nick just stood there, drenched in shadows and guilt. And for the first time in a long time, he had no idea what to say. Nick stood frozen, his expression grim. When Anna was around, everything about Jayden was her responsibility. Nick had always focused on his work, never bothering with the little things. He didn't even realize how terrified Jayden was of thunderstorms until now. And he had no idea what to do. He wanted to call Anna, ask her how she used to handle this kind of thing. But then he remembered the way she'd looked at him before she left. Cold, indifferent, like she'd finally stopped caring. The thought made his chest burn with anger.
No.
There was no way he was going to chase her down. That would mean swallowing his pride, and Nick Ambrose didn't beg anyone, especially not a woman who walked out on him. Then a thought hit him. Without wasting another second, he had someone bring Valentina over. Valentina arrived thinking Nick was worried about her being afraid of the storm and wanted her to stay the night for comfort. She couldn't have been more thrilled. The moment she saw him, she practically skipped over and slipped her arm through his with a flirty smile. "Did you miss me already? Is that why you called me over, Mr. Ambrose?" A flicker of disgust flashed across Nick's eyes, though his face remained unreadable. He casually pulled his arm away and said flatly, "Jayden's afraid of the thunder. Stay with him tonight." Valentina's smile faltered. Nick had only paid attention to her in the first place because she resembled Gianna, maybe 70 or 80%. That familiarity had been enough to make him let her stick around. He'd even brought her into his home. But as far as real feelings went, there were none. He couldn't stand being physically close to her. Even what happened earlier that day had been nothing but a performance, staged to provoke Anna. Valentina picked up on it, of course, and she wasn't happy. But she didn't dare say a word. She knew exactly why she was allowed to stay near Nick, and it had everything to do with her face and nothing to do with who she was. Still, she wasn't giving up. If she could win Jayden over, she'd have a shot at winning Nick's heart too. She believed that with everything in her. Fueled by that hope, she headed upstairs. But the moment she stepped into Jayden's room and saw his face, ghostly pale, eyes wide with fear, curled into a corner, she was caught completely off guard. The cold, hostile eyes he threw her way made her freeze in place. Nick was standing behind her, watching. She had no choice. Swallowing her fear, Valentina stepped forward, forcing a gentle smile onto her face. Jayden, sweetheart, it's me, your favorite Aunt V. Don't be scared. I'm here to protect you, okay? Come on, come to me. What she got in return was a sneaker to the face, followed by a crumpled hoodie. Go away. I want my mom. I only want my mom. The shoe hit her squarely in the cheek. Tears sprang to Valentina's eyes from the pain. Her first instinct was to yell, but she held back and forced a sweet voice instead. Honey, don't you remember? Your mom's gone. That awful woman abandoned you. She doesn't want you anymore. But Aunt V does. I'm here for you. Let me give you a hug, okay? She reached into the closet, trying to gently pull Jayden out. But Jayden slammed the closet door shut with a loud crack, right on her wrist. Valentina screamed, yanking her hand back as fast as she could. A nasty purple bruise was already forming. Clutching her wrist, she turned to Nick with tears in her eyes. Mr. Ambrose, look at my hand, this is too much. Jayden's not just scared, he's out of control. I really think we should call a doctor. Then, with a self-righteous edge to her voice, she added, honestly, I think this is Aria's fault. She must have done something to him before. That's probably why he acts like this during storms. Otherwise, why would he lash out at me like that? Nick's face darkened. He looked at Jayden, still curled up inside the closet, trembling, and his gaze grew complicated. Eventually, he relented and made the call. The doctor arrived not long after, and with some effort, they were able to calm Jayden down. After examining him, the doctor explained the situation. Jayden had suffered some kind of trauma when he was younger, something serious enough to leave a lasting mark. Every time there was a thunderstorm, it triggered those buried fears. He'd go into panic mode, and in that state, he'd attack anyone who came near. It didn't matter who they were, not even a mother he kept crying out for. Nick sat in silence, a heavy ache settling in his chest. For the first time, he realized just how much he didn't know about his own son, and how much Aria had been shielding both of them from him. Nick suddenly remembered, on the night after Gianna died, he'd been so consumed by grief that he completely neglected Jayden. During a thunderstorm not long after the funeral, Jayden had gotten so terrified he came down with a fever that lasted for nearly a month. Nick had called every top doctor he could find, but nothing helped. It wasn't until the third day after he married Aria and she moved into the house that Jayden finally started to get better. From that point on, Nick had handed Jayden over to Aria completely, and she had handled it all so well. With her around, Nick had never once heard Jayden complain of discomfort or injury. Now, thinking back, he realized he had no idea how Aria managed whenever Jayden had one of his episodes and lashed out. In all their years of marriage, she had never once complained to him. Then again, she didn't need to. Even if she never said a word, the signs were always there. Every time they were intimate, he'd shut off the lights so he didn't have to see her face, but he couldn't avoid feeling the scars on her skin. Some felt old, some still fresh. Whenever he got too rough, she'd cry out in pain. But he'd never asked, never cared enough to find out how she got them. Now it hit him, most of those injuries were probably from Jayden. A flash of guilt flickered in Nick's eyes. After making sure Jayden had calmed down and wouldn't relapse, he turned and left the room. Valentina quickly followed him, calling out, Mr. Ambrose, are you heading to bed? I'm getting tired too, but there's no room for me in the house. Nick stopped walking and glanced at her. Didn't I tell you to take care of Jayden? Sleep in his room. I'll have someone prepare a guest room for you tomorrow. And have breakfast ready before 6. Leave for the office at 6 sharp. Without waiting for a response, he turned and walked off. Valentina stood there, fuming but helpless. She bit her tongue and forced herself to swallow her frustration. Aria was gone now, and out of all the women around Nick, she looked the most like his late beloved. Time was on her side. She was confident she'd win his heart eventually. The next morning, Valentina got up early and made Nick a lavish breakfast. The table was covered with colorful, mouth-watering dishes. But instead of being impressed, Nick frowned. He looked up at her, clearly unimpressed. You didn't know I'm vegetarian? After Gianna's death, Nick had gone full vegetarian, hoping to accumulate good karma for her soul. It had been 5 years, and everyone in his social circle knew. There was no way Valentina didn't. Of course, Valentina knew. She did it on purpose. She wanted to stand out, be different from all the others. Smiling sweetly, she sat down next to him and held up a piece of braised pork. A strict vegetarian diet can cause nutrient deficiencies. You need a balanced intake to stay healthy. Just one bite, okay? I stayed up all night making this for you. Nick's face darkened. He slapped the piece of meat out of her hand and growled coldly. Get out of my sight. Valentina, the only reason I tolerate you being around is because of your face. Don't push your luck. He was done. With his appetite gone, he stood and walked away. Valentina stomped her foot in frustration. Still, she wasn't about to give up. She refused to believe she couldn't win Nick over with a face he used to love most. Nick had been at the office all day. He hadn't taken a break since clocking in. It wasn't until his stomach growled that he realized he hadn't eaten a single thing. Massaging his temple, feeling slightly lightheaded, he turned to his assistant and asked, "Where's Arya? Why hasn't she come with my lunch yet?" The assistant looked uncomfortable. "She won't be coming, sir. Didn't you say this morning that she wouldn't be coming anymore?" Only then did Nick remember Arya was gone. Again, he'd forgotten. He raked a hand through his hair, annoyed. God, how quickly he had gotten used to her being around. And how impossible it was to get used to her being gone. He opened their old chat thread. Over the past 5 years, Arya had sent him more than 5,000 messages, checking on him, reminding him to eat, to rest. And he'd only replied 5 times. Each response no more than 2 words. Since she'd left the Ambrose family, there hadn't been a single new message. Just then, his phone rang. It was the housekeeper. "Mr. Ambrose, something happened. It's your son." Nick's heart sank. He bolted upright. What happened to him? He's been vomiting and has severe diarrhea. It might be something he ate. We've already taken him to the hospital. Nick quickly got the hospital address and rushed over. When he arrived, Jayden was lying on the bed with N4 in his arm, his face as pale as a sheet. The sight of him was heartbreaking. Nick turned to the housekeeper. He hasn't had an episode in so long. What happened? The housekeeper lowered his head. It wasn't Madam who cooked today. Miss Valentina prepared lunch. She used a lot of seasoning, and it probably triggered Jayden's stomach. Nick's temples pulsed with fury. Bring Valentina here.
Now.
Valentina, already aware of the disaster she'd caused, came in red-eyed and trembling. She fell to her knees. "I'm sorry, Mr. Ambrose. I didn't mean to hurt him. Please give me another chance. I promise I'll do better." Nick's anger was bubbling just beneath the surface, but the moment he looked at her face, her familiar, beautiful face, his fury faltered. He let out a heavy breath and said stiffly, "I know you didn't mean it. I won't blame you this time. But from now on, let the professionals handle the meals. Just give the chefs the recipe book and make sure they follow it." Relieved, Valentina let out a shaky breath. But the moment she heard the word recipe, her expression stiffened. She forced a smile and said, "I'm sure professional chefs have dozens of recipes memorized. And even if they don't, they're great at improvising. The food will still taste good either way. So, I don't think there's any need to give them the recipe book." Nick's eyes narrowed. He hated it when people disobeyed his instructions, and he hated excuses even more. "If I say give them the recipe," he said coldly, raising his hand, "then you give it to them. And if you can't, then hand it to me, and I'll give it to them myself." That recipe wasn't just any random cookbook. It was Arya's personal notes. She'd spent nearly a year perfecting every meal inside it, every portion meticulously crafted to fit Jayden's unique dietary needs. No chef, no matter how skilled, would know Jayden's body the way Arya did. If something like today happened again, Jayden's body might not be able to handle it. Frustrated by her silence, Nick, now barely holding onto his patience, snapped, "Valentina, where is the recipe book?" Valentina froze. Her lips trembled, and after a long pause, she finally whispered, "I burned it." Time seemed to stop. Nick stood there, rigid, like the air had been knocked out of him. Then the rage came crashing in. "You what?" he snapped, voice like thunder. "Are you out of your damn mind? I told you that was Jayden's custom meal plan. Why would you destroy it?" "I'm sorry. I just thought Anna's gone, and keeping her things around might give her the idea that she's still welcome. What if she got the wrong idea and came back? I didn't want that to happen, so I burned it." Nick's whole body was trembling with fury. His jaw clenched, his fists tight at his sides. But in the end, he said nothing. He just told someone to take her away. Standing by Jayden's hospital bed, watching his son's frail little face, Nick finally understood. Not everyone could care for Jayden like Arya did. And not everyone could love him like she had, like he was truly her own. For the first time, a tiny seed of regret took root in Nick's heart. He had let on a go, and maybe that had been his biggest mistake. But almost immediately, Nick was rattled by his own thoughts. How could he possibly regret losing someone who was never essential in the first place? If anything, Arya should be the one full of regret for walking away from the Ambrose family and choosing a life of hardship instead. He wasn't sure how much time had passed before Jayden finally opened his eyes. His first words to Nick were, "Daddy, I'm starving. I really want some of that sweet and savory meatball stew Arya used to make." Nick didn't hesitate. He immediately called in the team of professional chefs he'd hired and made sure they were aware of Jayden's dietary restrictions and flavor preferences. Soon enough, a steaming bowl of meatball stew was brought in. It looked delicious, rich, aromatic, perfectly plated. But Jayden took one bite and instantly spat it back out, scrunching his nose in disgust. "This is awful. You call yourselves professional chefs? Make it again." The chefs Nick had hired were the best in the country, used to praise from everyone who tasted their food. Jayden's words felt like a slap in the face, but they didn't dare protest. They just apologized and returned to the kitchen to make another batch. Then another. And another. By the time they served the 10th version of the stew, Jayden's face hadn't relaxed once. He tried a spoonful, gagged, and then burst into tears. "I'm starving, Daddy. I want Arya to make it. Only hers tastes right." Jayden was Nick's son with the woman he'd loved most. He adored Jayden and had never denied him anything before. But when it came to calling Arya, he hesitated. "Come on, Daddy," Jayden demanded through sobs. "Get Arya back here. I need her to cook for me. I can't take this anymore. I haven't had a proper meal since she left." His cries grew louder, echoing through the hospital wing, a piercing sound that rattled Nick's eardrums. "All right, I'll call her. Just stop crying." With no other choice, Nick finally gave in. Jayden sniffled and finally quieted down, no longer tormenting Nick with his wails. Once outside the room, Nick found a quiet spot in the hallway, pulled out his phone, and scrolled to Arya's number. The familiar string of digits made his chest tighten. In 5 years of marriage, Arya had always been the one to call him. He had never once reached out to her first. And now, his first time doing so was after she had asked for a divorce. It felt like defeat. But Jayden's health came first. Swallowing his pride, Nick hit the call button. It rang.
And rang.
Long enough that Nick thought she might not answer. But just as he was about to hang up, her voice came through the receiver, soft, gentle. "What do you want?" Hearing her voice again made his heart stutter. For the first time, he noticed how beautiful it sounded, like a cool breeze on a scorching summer day, fresh and clear. He cleared his throat, trying not to sound awkward. "Look, about yesterday. I'm willing to let it go. You can come back to the Ambrose estate. Jayden wants your cooking. He's been asking for that stew. Just come back and make it for him." Arya's voice was cold. "I already told you. I'm not coming back. Never. Isn't Valentina staying with you guys now? Just have her follow my recipe." Nick's annoyed voice came through the line fast and sharp. "Arya, I'm giving you a chance here. I know you're just throwing a tantrum, waiting for me to lower my pride and make the first move. Well, here it is. Come back, take care of Jayden, and I swear I won't see Valentina again." I let out a bitter laugh. "You Ambroses are all the same, so damn full of yourselves. I'm not coming back. Figure it out on your own." And with that, I hung up. After leaving the Ambrose estate yesterday, I flew straight to my hometown. It's a small city, nothing flashy, but it held the happiest memories of my life. I'd been paying the landlord regularly. A lot had changed in the 5 years I'd been gone, but thankfully, the apartment I used to rent was still there. The landlord had kept it for me all these years, just in case I ever needed it. He'd even cleaned it up and kept it in perfect condition. When I arrived, everything was spotless, like it had been waiting for me all along. I dropped my luggage and was about to lie down for a nap when I heard a knock at the door. It was my landlord, an old man in his early 60s. Everyone around here calls him Mr. Walker. He had always treated me kindly, ever since he found out I reminded him of his late granddaughter. "Arya, you're back," Mr. Walker said with a warm smile, his voice trembling slightly with emotion. "I've missed you a lot these past years." I smiled back and handed him a small, elegant box from my suitcase. "I brought you something from the city. Open it, I hope you like it." He looked stunned and moved, carefully unwrapping the box. Inside was a designer watch, sleek and modern. I'd spent years saving up bits of spending money to buy that watch. I knew Mr. Walker loved watches, and he'd looked after me like family ever since Mom passed. I wanted to give him something special. He held it like it was treasure, but I could tell he thought it was too much. Eventually, he tried to give it back. I can't take it. This is too expensive, Arya. I don't need anything fancy. You should keep your money for yourself. Don't waste it on an old man who doesn't have many years left. I frowned, annoyed. Don't say grim stuff like that, Mr. Walker. You're going to live to 100. This watch suits you perfectly. Take it, I insist, or I'll get mad. I pushed it back into his hands and playfully shoved him toward the door, pretending to be irritated. Go on, get out of here. I need to rest. Once he was gone, peace settled over the room again. I lay down on the bed and pulled out a bracelet to examine more closely. It had belonged to my mom. Her early years were anything but kind. She was born into a poor family that favored sons over daughters. Her own relatives kept her under constant pressure and treated her like she didn't matter. Before she even hit 13, they shoved her out into the world to work. The money she made with her own 2 hands was never hers. Every single cent went straight to her parents, who funneled it to her brother, because, in their eyes, only he was worth investing in. For 5 long years, she labored endlessly. And in all that time, she never owned a single piece of new clothing. Not one. Everything she wore was secondhand, cast-offs from others, worn thin by time and use before they ever touched her skin. When she finally got older, she was starving for affection, for validation, for someone to see her. That made her vulnerable. And my father, he saw that. He lured her in with sweet talk and big promises, whispers of a better life, of love, of happiness. She believed him. She wanted to believe so badly that she stepped into marriage with hope in her heart. But it didn't take long for the mask to slip. After the wedding, my father changed. Just like that. The kindness disappeared, replaced by cigarettes, alcohol, and a gambling habit that drained what little they had. And when he drank, he got mean, violent. He hit her. Not just once. It became a pattern, like some twisted ritual. When she was pregnant with me, he got so angry one night that he kicked her, hard enough to almost end the pregnancy. As if that wasn't enough, he racked up a mountain of debt, throwing our already broke family into deeper despair. We couldn't even afford to take Mom to the hospital when she went into labor. She had no choice but to deliver me at home, all alone. From then on, it was just pain and survival. Mom and I lived under the shadow of his violence. Every time he raised his fists, she'd shield me with her own body, never letting a single blow land on me. Her bruises never had time to heal. New ones always followed. We tried to run, more than once, but it never worked. No matter where we went, he'd always find us, using his scummy friends to sniff out our address, dragging us back just to keep us under his thumb. That nightmare of a life finally ended because of a massive earthquake. He was too drunk to escape in time, and the house collapsed on him.
He was crushed to death.
Mom and I made it out. I thought it was the beginning of our new life. A freedom, where we got to live without fear anymore. But just when we thought we'd been spared, the aftershocks took her from me. I still remember what she said before she passed. Her biggest dream was to travel, to see the world. And every time she said it, little me would look her straight in the eye and promise, "Don't worry, Mom. When I grow up, I'll take you around the world. I'll make your dream come true." She'd always smile at that, eyes twinkling with hope. But she never got the chance. She died before I was old enough to even try. Thinking about everything she'd endured, being fooled by my scumbag dad, bled dry by his entire family like she was nothing more than a host, I felt tears sting my eyes. I hugged her bracelet to my chest like it was the last piece of her I had left. "I miss you, Mom." Nick's POV. On the other side of town, Nick's face was dark as a storm cloud after getting hung up on. He tightened his grip around the phone and walked straight into the hospital. As soon as Jayden saw him, his eyes lit up with anticipation. "What did she say?" Nick frowned. "She doesn't want to come back." A flicker of disappointment crossed Jayden's face, but he quickly masked it with a scoff. "Whatever. Like I even want her here. If it weren't for missing her meatballs and stew, I wouldn't have bothered trying to get her back in the first place. She's so ungrateful." He folded his arms, pretending not to care. "Her meatballs aren't that good anyway." But his tone betrayed him. The hurt in his voice was impossible to hide. Nick didn't argue. He simply called for the kitchen staff and had them design a new custom meal plan for Jayden. That finally calmed things down. Nick originally planned to stay and keep an eye on his son, but his assistant reminded him of an important dinner party that night. He had to get ready. With no other choice, he arranged for someone else to watch Jayden and returned home alone. Walking through the front door, the silence hit him like a wave. His mind flashed to a memory. Every time he came home from work, Arya would be there in the living room, waiting with a warm smile. Now there was no one. He stood there for a moment, unsettled by how much that small change affected him. Realizing how ridiculous he was being, he pulled himself together and went upstairs to change clothes. But when he opened his wardrobe, he couldn't find the tie he liked best, the one Gianna had given him. He always wore it to important events. He searched the closet from top to bottom. Nothing. Helpless, he texted Anna. "Where did you put the tie Gianna gave me?" I was just about to head out to grab something to eat when his message popped up on my phone. I sighed, feeling a headache coming on, and quickly typed back, "Bottom night drawer of your wardrobe." But something about that reply felt incomplete. After thinking for a second, I sent another message. "Ask Valentina to organize your closet next time. It'd be easier for you to ask her. Stop bothering me." About 5 seconds passed before my phone buzzed again. Nick had replied. "I know. I asked because I'm in a rush. It won't happen." I didn't text him back. I just hoped for once he'd actually mean what he said. When Nick arrived at the party, the change in his mood was obvious. His chiseled face was tight with tension, and he radiated such a cold, unapproachable energy that people instinctively stepped out of his way. A few of his closest friends quickly approached, concerned. "Dude, what's going on with you? You look like you're about to throw someone out a window. Who pissed you off? Just say the word. We'll handle it." Nick didn't respond. He just frowned, the deep line between his brows unyielding. His mind kept replaying the messages Arya had sent him earlier. "Stop bothering me," like he enjoyed bothering her. If it weren't for that damn tie, one that held more meaning than anyone knew, he wouldn't have contacted her at all. His friends were sharp. They weren't used to seeing him like this, and it didn't take long to figure out it probably had something to do with her. So they decided to distract him the only way they knew how: alcohol. "Come on, man," one of them said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Whatever's bugging you, a drink or two'll help. The hosts tonight specialize in spirits, and they're launching something new. Let's try it. If it's good, maybe we strike a deal and bring it to our clubs."
Nick didn't object.
He let them drag him off to the tasting area. Sure enough, in between drinks, Nick ended up chatting with one of the organizers, and by the end of the night, he'd casually locked down a new partnership. His buddies were practically green with envy. Nick, on the other hand, didn't feel a thing, except a growing weight on his chest. So he drank more. The party went on until 3 in the morning. By the time it wrapped, Nick was completely hammered, his brain foggy, and his speech a little slurred. His friends bundled him into a car and took him home. Back at his place, his head felt like it was splitting open. Half conscious, he instinctively called out for Arya to make him a hangover remedy, only to remember she was gone. With a frustrated sigh, he dragged himself into the kitchen. What? He couldn't even make a damn soup without her. Unwilling to admit defeat, Nick pulled out a cookbook and started following the steps to make his own hangover soup. 5 minutes later,
Boom.
a small explosion went off in the kitchen, flames leaping up as the fire alarm began to blare. Startled servants ran in, putting out the fire and dragging a dazed and slightly singed Nick out of the chaos. His hair was a total mess, and his face was blackened with soot. He looked utterly ridiculous. Nick ran a hand through his scorched hair with a defeated groan. Without Arya, he couldn't even manage the simplest things. For the next few days, Nick didn't go home once. He buried himself in work, spending every waking hour at the office, using the relentless pace to numb his thoughts, anything to avoid seeing her face in his mind. Then one day, the hospital called. Jayden was fully recovered and ready to be discharged. They asked Nick to come pick him up. After work, Nick made his way to the hospital. But when he walked into Jayden's room, he was surprised to find someone already there. Valentina. She was helping Jayden pack up his things. When she saw him, she lowered her head, looking ashamed. "Mr. Ambrose, I know what I did was wrong.
I just want a chance to make it right.
Let me take care of Jayden for a while. I promise I won't let him get hurt again." Afraid he might shut her down, Valentina looked up at him with big, pitiful eyes, her expression soft and pleading. And yet, for the first time, when Nick looked at her, the face that so closely resembled the woman he'd loved for years, he didn't feel warmth. He felt a flicker of disgust. Not strong, but real. That won't be necessary. I already have my staff to do this, he said firmly. The moment he said that, Valentina's heart dropped. Her instincts screamed warning. She quickly reached for his hand and clung to it, using her sweetest voice. Mr. Ambrose, you're still mad at me, aren't you?
I'm sorry.
Really? I didn't mean to hurt you or Jayden. Just give me one more chance, okay? I promise, no more reckless behavior. Nick felt that same prickling sense of revulsion rise in his chest. He tried to pull his hand away, but she held on tight, too tight. With no better option, he gave in.
Fine.
One more chance. Valentina's eyes lit up. She knew when to stop pushing, so she let go of his hand and turned to Jayden with a bright smile. Jayden, you're getting discharged today. How about we celebrate? Do you like theme parks? Let's go to a theme park. Jayden's face, which had been a little sullen, instantly lit up. He didn't even look at Valentina. He looked straight at Nick. Is Dad coming too? Nick opened his mouth, ready to say no. But Jayden beat him to it. You hardly ever have time for me.
Can't we just go, please?
Just this once. The three of us. Like a real family. He grabbed their hands and looked up with a hopeful expression that was hard to resist. Nick hesitated. The thought of pretending to be a family with Valentina made his stomach churn. But when he saw the way Jayden looked at him, full of hope, he caved. At the amusement park, the first thing Jayden wanted to do was take a picture. He positioned them carefully, Nick and Valentina standing close together, and him in front. Then he reached back, grabbed their hands, and placed them on his shoulders. Perfect, he grinned as the camera clicked. Dad, post this one, Jayden said excitedly. Put it on your feed. I want Arya to see it, to see how happy we are without her. He was practically beaming, already imagining the look on Arya's face when she saw how close he was with Valentina. Jayden had always known Arya loved him. No matter how many times he cursed her or played tricks on her, she treated him like her own. He didn't believe for a second that seeing him with another woman wouldn't sting. She deserved it. This was her punishment for leaving. Nick was curious too. He wanted to see how Arya would react. So, he posted the photo to his feed. It didn't take long for the comments to pour in. Dom, bro. Who's the new lady? She looks just like Gianna. So perfect with you. Dude, are you hiding her from us? Word is you two go way back. No wonder Arya bailed. I'd be jealous too. Wait, you were married to Arya for 5 years and never posted her once. And now you're putting this girl on your feed? Are you serious about her? Thought the Ambroses didn't do second marriages. Don't tell me this is your secret fling. Nick didn't respond. He didn't care about their gossip. He just kept watching his notifications, waiting. Then, finally, he saw it, Arya's profile picture. Her name popped up in the feed. His heart skipped. He tapped on the post. But she hadn't liked his picture. She had liked someone else's, another mutual friend. A woman. She'd posted a photo from a snowy mountain trip. Anna had commented, "Where is this? I want to go." Nick felt a vein in his forehead twitch. His jaw clenched. With a huff, he locked his phone and tossed it aside. The rest of the day, Valentina dragged the father and son from one attraction to the next. She'd done her homework, making sure each stop would be fun. But no matter what they did, Nick and Jayden barely paid attention. Their hearts weren't in it. Sensing something was off, Valentina tried to liven things up by suggesting they hit the roller coaster. Nick didn't hesitate. Jayden's health isn't great. He can't handle something that intense. Valentina waved off his concern. I know Jayden has health issues, but come on, he's not a little kid anymore. A bit of excitement won't kill him. When Arya was around, she never let him do anything. She kept him on such a tight leash. But now that I'm here, I'm going to make up for all of that. I want him to grow up strong and free. She smiled confidently and reached out to ruffle Jayden's hair. Right, sweetie? Arya's not here anymore. You don't have to follow her rules. If she knew you were still afraid to do anything just because of her, she'd probably be gloating. Don't give her that satisfaction. At first, Jayden had agreed with Nick. He knew his own body, his heart wasn't strong, and he'd never been able to handle too much excitement. That's why Arya had always been so strict with him, even if it meant saying no to things other kids got to do. But when he heard Valentina's last words, something inside him snapped. His rebellious teenage instinct flared up, and his voice was sharp as he shot back. Arya? She was just a shallow woman pretending to be my mom. You think I was afraid of her? The only reason I ever let her boss me around was because she was technically my stepmom. But she's out of the picture now. I don't have to listen to her anymore. He stormed toward the roller coaster entrance like he had something to prove. Nick quickly grabbed his arm. You can't handle that kind of ride, Jay. Let's find another one. Jayden yanked his arm free. Dad, are you seriously buying into everything Arya told you? Yeah, I've got some health issues, but they're not as bad as she made them sound. She exaggerated everything just to keep me under control. Nick hesitated. He'd been so focused on work over the years that he hadn't paid close attention to Jayden's condition. Everything he knew came from Anna, and now, suddenly, he wasn't so sure what was true anymore. Jayden looked determined, stubborn. In the end, Nick caved, agreeing to ride with him just in case something went wrong. But as they were approaching the ticket scanner, Nick caught a flash of a familiar figure moving through the crowd. He froze. His heart jumped. Arya, he called instinctively, eyes locked on the retreating figure. Arya. Then he took off running toward the crowd, leaving Jayden and Valentina behind. Jayden tried to follow, but they had already entered through the turnstile and couldn't get back out. Frustrated and confused, they gave up and boarded the roller coaster. Meanwhile, Nick ran through the crowd, weaving between people, chasing that glimpse of a familiar silhouette. He reached the park entrance just as the woman was about to step outside. He caught up to her and grabbed her shoulder, breathless. Arya, where are you going? The woman jumped, startled, and turned around, only to reveal a complete stranger. A young woman, clearly not Arya, blinked up at him. Her face flushed as she took in his handsome features. Can I help you? She asked, flustered. Nick's expression froze. He let out an awkward breath and gave a stiff smile. Sorry, I thought you were someone else. He turned around, annoyed at himself. Get a grip, he told himself. Of course, he was seeing her everywhere. She'd vanished from his life overnight. No warning, no closure. It was like his brain refused to accept she was gone. Just then, his phone rang. It was Valentina. Her voice was frantic. Nick, something happened. It's Jayden. He collapsed. You need to get over here.
Now.
Nick's blood ran cold. He bolted through the park, his heart pounding in his chest. When he got to the ride, he saw Valentina sitting on the ground, cradling Jayden in her arms. The boy was unconscious, completely unresponsive. Nick froze, his blood running cold. Then, as reality kicked in, he scooped Jayden into his arms and rushed toward the hospital. 10 minutes later, Jayden was being rushed into the operating room. Nick paced outside, anxiety etched into every line of his face. As soon as Valentina arrived, he turned on her, his voice low and dangerous. How'd he end up like this? What the hell happened? How could he have passed out? Valentina lowered her head, her voice trembling. Jayden said he'd never been on a roller coaster before. He was scared during the ride, and when we got off, he collapsed. If anyone's to blame, it's Arya. She'd babied him his whole life. Now his body can't even handle the smallest scare. Nick's jaw clenched, and for the first time, he snapped at her. If you hadn't pressured him to get on that damn ride, none of this would have happened. You'd better pray he's okay, or you're going to have to deal with the consequences. Valentina flinched at the fury in his voice and shrank back, not daring to speak another word. She hadn't expected Jayden's reaction to be this extreme. Passing out over a simple roller coaster? All she'd wanted was to create a little drama, to bring her and Nick closer. But now, with Jayden unconscious and the weight of the situation crashing down, she couldn't pretend it wasn't her fault. Yet, in her mind, it wasn't her fault. No, it was Arya's. That woman had ruined Jayden, turned him into a boy who was too weak for the real world. And worse, she kept standing in Valentina's way. Nick waited anxiously until the light above the door turned off, and the doctor finally emerged. He rushed forward. Doctor, how's my son? He's stable now, but the doctor gave him a grave look. His heart isn't in perfect condition. We advise you not to let him experience any more stress. Next time, it could be much worse. Nick nodded quickly, understanding the weight of the doctor's words. Soon, Jayden was wheeled out of surgery, his tiny face pale and drained of color. Nick followed the medical team into the room where Jayden was being transferred. As Valentina tried to come in after them, he turned around and shot her a cold glare. You're no longer needed or allowed anywhere near Jayden, he said firmly. Go home. Pack your things. Your services are no longer required at the Ambrose estate. This decision hadn't come out of nowhere. Valentina had barely been living with them for long, and already Jayden had ended up in the hospital more than once. She never cared enough to pay attention to his well-being. It didn't matter that her face resembled Gianna's. A woman like her was useless if she couldn't even be trusted to take care of his son. Valentina's face drained of color. Her eyes widened in disbelief, and she scrambled to defend herself. Mr. Ambrose, please. I didn't mean for this to happen. I really do care about Jayden, I swear. Just give me one more chance. Please. Her eyes reddened, tears brimming. She knew how to use her looks to her advantage. Usually, Nick would soften at the sight of her face. Gianna's face. But this time, he didn't budge. His voice remained flat, emotionless. Leave. Valentina froze at the sound of his voice. There was no room for negotiation in his tone, just cold, final dismissal. Any more pleading and she'd only humiliate herself further. She bit her lower lip, turned around without another word, and ran down the hallway, her heels clicking faintly against the floor. Nick turned away and stepped back into the hospital room. The nurse had just left, leaving only him and the unconscious child. He sat beside the hospital bed, his eyes falling on Jayden, his son. His own flesh and blood. A boy he barely knew. A boy he had never truly raised. He used to think parenting couldn't be hard. Every time he came home and saw Arya exhausted from taking care of Jayden, he dismissed it as her being overly sensitive. He assumed she was just making a fuss. But now that he was living it, he finally understood how wrong he'd been. Taking care of a child wasn't just about feeding and clothing them. It was about keeping them safe, emotionally and physically, 24/7. And truth be told, he had it easier. Jayden didn't harbor any resentment toward him, yet even then, caring for him was exhausting. He couldn't imagine how Arya had managed all those years on her own. How she hadn't completely broken down under the pressure was beyond him. Nick was in the middle of wiping Jayden's face when the boy murmured in his sleep. It was the middle of the night, and the room was quiet except for the rhythmic beeping of the monitors. Nick's hand froze mid-motion. He looked up and saw a single tear trailing down Jayden's cheek. Don't leave me.
I'm sorry.
I don't want to leave. Please come back, Mommy. Jayden's hand reached out, clutching Nick's tightly. His small voice, fragile and heartbroken, continued. Mom, where are you? You don't want me anymore?
I'm sorry, Mom.
I'll be good. His voice cracked, and he began to sob in his sleep. Soft, pitiful whimpers that stabbed Nick right in the heart. Nick scooped him up into his arms, holding him gently, his voice low and warm. It's okay, son. Your mom will come back for you. I promise. Jayden's body relaxed as if he heard his father's words, even in his sleep. It was the first time in years that Nick had felt this kind of bond with him. Real, authentic closeness. His thoughts drifted back to Arya. Would she ever forgive him for the way he treated her? He wasn't sure. But one thing was clear. He'd let Arya go once. But now, he wasn't so sure that was the right thing to do. He sighed deeply, his eyes drifting back to Jayden. Stay with me, kiddo, he murmured softly. I'm not going anywhere. I had just boarded the bus to the next city for a short getaway when my phone rang. Balancing my backpack and travel bag, I hit answer, without checking the caller ID. Anna, I don't care where you are. Come home.
Now.
Nick's voice barked from the other end, commanding and without greeting. My brows furrowed, and my vacation mood shattered. I replied coldly, voice devoid of emotion. I already told you. I'm not coming back. Don't call me again. I was about to hang up when he cut in. It's not me who wants you back. It's Jayden. He's been unconscious for days. The doctors think you might be the only one who can wake him. My eyes narrowed. If you've got time to bother me, maybe you should use it to find a better doctor. There was a brief pause. Then Nick's voice softened, frustration creeping through. Don't you want to know why Jayden collapsed? You raised him for years. Doesn't that matter to you? Once upon a time, it would have. I would have rushed to the hospital without hesitation.
But now?
Now, I felt nothing. Their lives no longer concerned me. Asking would have been a waste of breath. You won't even. Apparently, Nick wasn't used to this version of me. He sounded exasperated. Jayden didn't want you to leave, Arya. And now you're not even checking on him after he's sick? What kind of mother does that? I let out a short, humorless laugh. A mother? I scoffed. After 5 years, Jayden never once called me that. All I ever heard was murderer or bitch, and you just stood there, letting it happen. And now you want me to act like his mother? Real nice, Nick. He fell silent, clearly at a loss. After a moment, he tried again, his tone softer. I know we were wrong. Both Jayden and I'm sorry. But he needs you, Arya. please come back. And there it was again, Nick's ego. He was so used to giving orders. Even now, he spoke like he expected me to drop everything and obey. He never asked what I was doing or if I needed help. Same old Nick. The bus engine roared to life, and I ended the call without another word. He tried calling again. I hit decline, then blocked his number. Not even a second later, a DM popped up on my screen. Nick, you blocked me? Don't push your luck, Anna. I'm giving you 24 hours to get back to the city. Nick, Jayden might not be your biological son, but he's still a Fusco. The Fusco family saved you once, didn't they? Or have you forgotten that debt? Now you're going to stand by and let your benefactor's own child suffer? I frowned at the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard for a moment before typing a cold, simple reply. Arya, yes, the Fusco family saved me, but I've already paid that debt in full. I married you for 5 years. I deleted the conversation, blocked his account, and shut off my phone entirely. I tucked it deep into my coat pocket and leaned back in my bus seat, finally letting myself relax as the engine hummed to life and the scenery outside began to roll past. I was done. Done being guilt-tripped. Done being dragged back into the chaos I'd worked so hard to escape. Nick's POV. On the other side of the city, Nick stood frozen with the phone in his hand, jaw tight, face flushed with frustration. Her message hit him harder than he wanted to admit, and the more he reread it, the more something about it didn't sit right. But I've already paid that debt, in full. I married you for 5 years. The words echoed in his head, souring in his gut. He suddenly turned on his heel and stormed out of the house. His first stop? The Fusco estate. When he arrived, the grand front door was already ajar. He stepped inside just as Mrs. Fusco was gathering her purse, clearly about to leave. She looked up in mild surprise when she saw him standing there, tense and rumpled. Nick, she said, puzzled. What are you doing here?
He didn't bother with small talk.
Mom, Arya said she only married me to repay a favor. What the hell is she talking about? Mrs. Fusco paused, then slowly walked over to the tea table and pulled open one of the drawers. She took out a thin file and handed it to Nick. He opened it and scanned the first page. What is this? It's the agreement between Arya and me, Mrs. Fusco said softly. After Gianna passed away, I was desperate to find someone I could trust to raise Jayden. The only person I could think of was Arya. I had sponsored her through school for 5 years, and she was about to leave the country for graduate studies. But out of selfishness, I asked her to stay. Nick stared at her, stunned. So, you convinced her to marry me? I made her a deal, Mrs. Fusco said softly. If she agreed to stay and marry you, to help raise Jayden for 5 years, then after that, her debt to me would be considered paid in full. She'd owe the Fusco family nothing. She could walk away as a free woman. Nick stared at the pages, unable to speak. I always thought that maybe, over time, things would change, Mrs. Fusco went on. That maybe you two would fall in love, that maybe she'd want to stay. But the moment those 5 years ended, she came to me and said she was done. She didn't even hesitate. Her voice cracked slightly. Whatever kindness she showed you and Jayden, trust me, I saw it all. She may have just been fulfilling a contract, but she played the part of a devoted wife and mother better than anyone else ever could. Nick stood there, completely still, like the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. He couldn't believe it. Arya, gentle, quiet, always putting them first, had been playing a role the entire time. It felt like the air had been knocked out of him. Then, without warning, he dropped to his knees in front of his mother. His voice was hoarse. This is my fault. I had 5 years and still couldn't make Arya fall in love with me. But Jayden's in a coma now. The doctors say the only chance he has to wake up is if Arya comes back. His eyes were red. I already called her. She won't come. But maybe she'll listen to you.
Please.
Can you try? Mrs. Fusco's face softened, but her eyes still held a quiet, sorrowful resolve. Arya doesn't owe us anything anymore, Nick, she said, her voice low. And the look on her face that day, it was unshakable. She was done. I'm not sure she'll ever come back. She paused, her gaze drifting toward the window as memories flickered behind her eyes. Then she continued, quieter now, as though speaking more to herself than to him. But since Jayden is my grandson, and since he's all I have left of my daughter, so yes, I'll try. She pulled out her phone with steady fingers and dialed Arya's number. Arya's POV. I had just arrived at my destination when my phone rang. The moment the bus stopped, I grabbed my suitcase and got off. Just as my feet hit the ground, my phone buzzed in my pocket. When I saw the caller ID, I already knew what it was about. Nick must have failed to convince me and gone running to Mrs. Fusco. Even now, no matter how far I tried to distance myself, I could never fully cut ties with the woman who once helped me survive the darkest moments of my life. That debt was impossible to fully repay, no matter what our agreement said. So when her name popped up on my screen, I couldn't bring myself to ignore it. I picked up. "Is everything all right, Mrs. Fusco?" "Anna," she said gently. "Nick told me everything about what happened. I want to apologize on their behalf. I know we agreed that after the 5 years, your debt to us would be cleared. And it is. But Jayden, he's in bad shape. He needs you. The doctors say only you might be able to help." She paused, her voice tight with guilt. "I know it's not fair to ask, and I hate going back on my word. But for the sake of the boy I raised after Gianna died, for my daughter's child, I'm asking.
Just one last time.
Could you see him?" I could hear the strain in her voice. This wasn't manipulation. This was a mother on the verge of desperation, torn between pride and love. Despite everything, I couldn't bring myself to turn her down. I nodded, though she couldn't see me.
All right.
"I'll come see him after the tour ends." This trip was just a one-day sightseeing tour to a nearby city. I returned that night, and the very next morning, I boarded a flight back to Breeswell. When I arrived at the Fusco residence, it was exactly as I imagined. And there, waiting for me, was Nick. The moment I walked through the door, Nick's bloodshot eyes lit up like a man who hadn't seen daylight in weeks. He stood up, clearly wanting to approach, but hesitated halfway through the motion. His foot paused midair before he awkwardly pulled it back, like pride was waiting for me to come to him first. Classic Mick. He didn't want to look desperate, but he didn't want to appear like the one chasing either. But I hadn't come back to sit down for drinks with him or to fall back into old habits. Without a word, I walked past him and headed straight for Dr. Fusco. "When are we going to see Jayden?" I asked. She didn't miss a beat. "Soon," she said, then led both of us to the hospital room. The sterile white walls of the hospital hadn't changed, but Jayden had. As we pushed open the door to his room, I froze for a second. He looked like a shadow of the boy I once knew. Pale, thinner than I remembered, so fragile it seemed like even the sheets could break him. My heart tightened in my chest, and I was surprised by how much it hurt. I thought I was past caring, but looking at him now, so broken, so vulnerable, the years I spent raising him surged back. I walked to his bedside, gently brushing his damp hair from his forehead. My voice softened, barely above a whisper. "Jayden, Jayden?" He didn't move. I called his name again, and again. By the 5th time, something shifted. His fingers twitched, then suddenly, his hand shot up and gripped my wrist tightly. "Mom." His voice was rough, like it hadn't been used in days. "You're back, right?" "Mom." I held his hand, trying to calm his panic. "Yes, I'm here. I'm right here, sweetheart. Just open your eyes." He stirred, then slowly, his lids lifted. When his eyes finally focused on me, he gasped, then sat up abruptly and launched himself into my arms.
"Mom, it's really you. I'm so sorry."
"I didn't mean all those awful things I said. I shouldn't have called you a murderer or a whore. I was wrong. I didn't know better. I was stupid." His sobs racked his body as he clung to me, soaking the collar of my shirt with tears. "I don't want Valentina. I don't want anyone else. I just want you to be my mom. Please come back to me and Dad. We need you." I held him long enough to calm him down, my hand gently rubbing his back. Then I looked up and found Mick staring at me, his expression unreadable. The moment our eyes met, he flinched and turned away, like a teenager caught staring too long. I felt nothing. Once Jayden had stopped shaking, I turned to Mrs. Fusco. "I've done what you asked. I woke him up. That's all I came to do. Please take care of him." I stood up, and Jayden instantly panicked. His fingers clutched at mine like a lifeline. "Mom, where are you going? Didn't you say you'd come back?" I pulled my hand free and said calmly, "I'm not your mom, remember? Gianna is now that I've divorced your father. I have no obligation to stay. Take care of yourself." I turned and walked out without looking back. I heard Mrs. Fusco calling my name, but I didn't stop. I could hear Jayden behind me, crying like the world was ending, his voice sharp and frantic. Outside, sunlight hit my face as I mentally mapped out the next leg of my journey. Mom had always wanted to see the country. I'd only seen the neighboring city. Another memory to create. As I reached the hospital entrance, someone grabbed my wrist. Nick had run after me. He was out of breath, but his eyes were serious, desperate even. "Anna," he pleaded, "I need to talk to you." I didn't say a word. I just pulled my hand away and waited. "I've made a lot of mistakes," he said, his voice low, sincere, or at least practiced well enough to sound that way. "These past weeks without you, 4 or 5 years, I've taken you for granted, treated you like someone I could always count on. But I was wrong." He stepped closer, his eyes pleading. "Jayden still needs you. I still need you. Can we try again? I swear I'll make it right." "Nick, it's over. Maybe it's time you started looking elsewhere. Try Valentina. She seems like your type." His face looked stricken, like I'd slapped him. I actually felt nothing. "You left me for her," I said, my voice steady but cutting. "You've never loved me. Not truly. All these years, you've never been there, never cared enough to fight for me. I wasn't in your heart. I've been in your way." Nick flinched, but I didn't back down. "You don't love me. You never did. And now you want to fix it? It's too late." His mouth opened like he was about to say something, but I stopped him. "I'm done." Nick's face twisted with confusion and hurt. He reached out to me, but I took a step back. "I'm done. And I'm never coming back." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving him standing in the sun, his words fading into the distance. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Mrs. Fusco gave a slight nod, tilting her chin toward Jayden as a silent signal for her men to take him away. As soon as they got the signal, her men stepped forward and dragged Jayden away. He kicked and screamed, thrashing in their grip, refusing to go quietly. But when he wouldn't stop, they had no choice. They knocked him out cold. I turned back to Mrs. Fusco, meeting her gaze with quiet resolve. "I just want you to know," I said softly, "this doesn't change anything between us. You can reach out to me anytime. If you ever need help, anything, as long as it doesn't involve the Ambrose family, I'll be there." She nodded slowly, her expression warm with understanding. "The same goes for you. You're part of the Fusco family now. My door will always be open." "I'm expecting a visit once in a while," she added. "I will." I gave her a small nod before turning and getting into the car. Nick looked like he wanted to come after me, but when he spotted a few of his brothers walking toward him from the hospital entrance, he hesitated. Then he forced himself to play it cool and stepped back, turning around and heading into the building like nothing had happened. From the back seat, I watched his retreating figure through the window. Oddly enough, my heart felt calm, completely still. By the time I got home, it was already the next morning. I packed a small suitcase and decided I needed a break, some time alone in another city. I slipped on my mother's bracelet, grabbed my bag, and caught the first train to Florendale. Using some travel tips I found online, I spent the entire day exploring. I was exhausted but happy, and after booking a room at a 5-star hotel for the night, I decided to hit the night market to see what kind of food and trinkets I could find. Halfway there, I passed a narrow alley and stopped in my tracks when I heard a voice I instantly recognized. "You told me if I made myself look like Gianna, Nick would fall in love with me." I kicked Arya out. I practically threw myself at him with my clothes off, and he still wouldn't touch me. "Valentina?" I blinked, stunned to hear her voice here, of all places. But I didn't dwell on it. Whatever mess she had with the Ambrose family had nothing to do with me anymore. I was about to keep walking when another voice chimed in. "Looks like seduction's not gonna cut it. Maybe it's time we try something else. We drug Nick, get you pregnant, and you ride that baby bump straight into the Ambrose family." Valentina snapped back quickly. "No, that won't work. The Ambrose family has strict rules. Their men can't marry twice. Even if I have his child, I'll never be accepted, and neither will the baby." The man let out a low chuckle. "That's easy. We get rid of Jayden. Once he's out of the picture and you're carrying Nick's kid, the family won't have a choice. They might have rules, but there's no way they'll let the Ambrose line end." Then he added, "But you're not really going to have Nick's kid. You're mine. If there's going to be a baby, it's going to be ours." Valentina gave a cold, vicious laugh. "Of course. I want our child to become the heir to the Ambrose fortune. I want to be the one everyone fears and respects, Mrs. Ambrose." Their voices grew more heated, twisted with excitement, and then they both started laughing, high-pitched, maniacal giggles echoing through the alley. My stomach twisted. I turned and started walking away quickly, pulling out my phone and dialing Nick's number as I went. The phone rang, then clicked. His voice came through the line, a little breathless, a little hopeful. "Arya, Just as I opened my mouth to respond, something slammed into the back of my head. Pain exploded behind my eyes, and the world spun. My phone slipped from my hand and crashed to the ground. Anna, is everything all right? Nick's voice crackled through the phone. Arya, are you all right? Arya, say something. Nick's voice grew panicked. He kept calling my name, again and again, each time more desperate than the last. Then, from the shadows, a hand with blood-red nail polish slid into view. It reached down, picked up the phone, and ended the call. Valentina sneered as she looked down at me, then hurled the phone against the pavement, shattering it. She kicked me hard in the side. Think you can rat me out to Nick? She hissed. Gosh, you've always been in the way. I didn't know where I was when I came to, but the air reeked of alcohol and sweat. My mouth was taped shut. My arms and legs were tied to a chair, and the lighting was dim, flashing intermittently like I was in some kind of club. Valentina sauntered over, hips swaying, holding a glass of some dark-colored drink. She looked way too pleased with herself. About time you woke up. My voice came out muffled but sharp. What the hell do you want from me? You think you can just kidnap me and get away with it? When I get out of here, I'll have you arrested. She let out a cold laugh and grabbed my chin, squeezing hard until it hurt, forcing me to meet her eyes. You think you're in any position to threaten me? That's cute. I just finished laying out my plan with my husband, she sneered. And then you showed up. I know damn well you heard everything. Of course, I couldn't let that slide. Lucky for me, I got to you just in time. You're always in my way, aren't you? A sharp, metallic taste filled my mouth.
Blood.
My lower lip had split open, and a dull throb pulsed along my jaw. I spat the blood onto the floor and glared at her. Nick already knows I called him. I growled. The second I go silent, he'll know something's wrong. He'll come looking. You ready to deal with that? Nick, she laughed again, this time softer, crueler. He could tear the whole damn city apart, for all I care, but he won't find this place. And honestly, by the time he even gets close, you'll already be dead. We've lined up dozens of guys just for you. A chill went down my spine. My stomach twisted in horror.
What the hell do you mean by that?
But she didn't answer. Instead, she yanked me out of the chair and shoved me into the center of the dance floor, right under the pulsing lights. Then she turned to the crowd and shouted,
Boys.
This one's a gift for me. Go wild. Do whatever you want. Hell, break her if you feel like it. I won't stop you. The men around us erupted in cheers and laughter. They got up, eyes full of hunger, grinning like wolves circling a kill. I screamed into the tape, struggling with everything I had, but the ropes only cut deeper into my wrists and ankles. Get away from me. Don't touch me. I shouted when the tape finally slipped off. Two of the men lunged at me, grabbing my clothes and yanking hard. I kicked and thrashed, but it was useless. Fabric tore. My skin was exposed to the cold air. Damn, look at that body. One of them leered. Bet she's had her fair share of fun before. This is gonna be good. Better than Valentina, that's for sure, another said, licking his lips. Look at those curves. Quit talking. I'm going first. Gonna ride her into the ground. They all started laughing, throwing around crude remarks as their filthy hands roamed across my body. My stomach turned violently. I gagged, ball rising in my throat. And then, without thinking, I sank my teeth into one of their hands, hard enough to rip flesh. The taste of blood mixed with their rank body odor made me gag harder, tears stinging my eyes. You fucking bitch, he yelled and slapped me so hard my ears rang. You wanna die tonight, huh? He yanked the ropes off and dragged me off the chair, throwing me roughly to the floor. Before I could scramble away, he was already climbing on top of me. I struggled with everything I had, but another slap came fast and sharp, this time from a different man. Keep squirming and we'll beat you to death before we even get started, he hissed. I didn't stop. Help. Somebody help me. A finger jammed deep into my throat, cutting off the cry. I gagged, tears pouring from my eyes as pain exploded in my throat. Shut up, bitch, the man growled. You're gonna enjoy this. We're the best at what we do. Just as he moved to unbuckle his belt, the doors burst open with a loud crash. A tall, furious figure stormed inside, and before anyone could react, he sent the man on top of me flying with one brutal kick. Arya, are you okay? Nick's voice cracked as he pulled me into his arms. His hands trembled slightly when he saw my shredded clothes, the bruises on my skin, the broken look in my eyes. Without hesitation, he yanked off his jacket and gently wrapped it around me. You're safe now. I've got you. I'm taking you home. The disgusting men tried to step in, maybe thinking they still had a chance. Idiots. Nick's men swarmed in behind him like a wrecking crew, knocking them out one by one. Within seconds, the bastards were left groaning and crawling on the floor, their smug faces swollen and bloodied. Nick carried me to the car like I weighed nothing. When he got a closer look at the handprint on my face, his jaw clenched and his eyes turned glassy. I'm so sorry, Arya. I should have gotten to you sooner. I should have protected you. Now that I was finally safe, the adrenaline drained out of me, leaving only exhaustion behind. I leaned back in the seat, took a breath, and asked calmly, "How did you find me?" "I tracked your phone." Nick kept his eyes on the road. At first, it didn't work. I had to call in the best hacker I know back home to crack the signal. Once we got a lock, I drove straight here. It's not far from my place, just took a little while. He wanted to say something else, but his grip tightened on the wheel. I could feel he was still rattled by what almost happened. He looked like he wanted to say more, but I beat him to it. "I need to tell you about Valentina. I know," he cut in. Nick didn't even flinch. His voice was eerily calm, too calm, and that caught me off guard.
What?
"I know everything," he said flatly. "I know she's married." The second she heard about me and Gianna, she ran off to get plastic surgery to make herself look like her. She was trying to worm her way into my house, seduce me, and bleed me dry to bankroll her husband. My brows furrowed. "How do you know all that?" "I had her investigated," he said, eyes fixed on the road. "She and her husband are in custody now. My lawyers are making sure they don't walk out free." Then he turned to me, his gaze softening as he reached for my hand. "Anna, come back to me. Let's start over. I need you. Jayden needs you too." I pulled my hand back slowly, the chill in my voice unmistakable. "Why do you want me back?" He hesitated for half a second, then said, "Because I love you." I let out a quiet laugh, one without warmth. If something had happened to me today, and your friends found out, would you still want me?" His expression cracked. For a second I saw it, that flicker of hesitation. But then he said, "Of course. I love you. All of you." He said it convincingly. Maybe even believed it. But I could see through him. Nick was the type who cared deeply about appearances, about pride. He couldn't stand the idea of someone tarnishing what he saw as his. If I had been violated, he might still love me, but he'd never let me face the world again. At best, he'd hide me away like a secret, the same way he tossed Gianna aside when her past caught up with her. I stared at him for a long second, then said quietly, "Nick, you can lie to everyone else, but not to yourself. Your pride will always matter more than your love for me." And that was the truth. Strangely, I felt a sense of relief. Thank God I never fell in love with him. If I had, I don't even want to think about where I'd be now. Nick's face darkened. He didn't argue, didn't say another word, just drove me back in silence and dropped me off at my place. After I showered and scrubbed every trace of that nightmare off my skin, I finally curled up in bed. My body still ached, but the worst was over. Then my phone rang. It was Jayden. My first instinct was to ignore it. I was still reeling from everything that had happened tonight, and I honestly didn't know if I had the emotional energy to deal with him right now. But then I remembered. Nick had saved me. Whatever his reasons were, he had stepped in when it counted. Maybe, just maybe, answering wouldn't hurt. I swiped to pick up the call.
Mom.
"I heard what happened. Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" Jayden's worried voice echoed from the other end of the line, cracking a little with panic. "I'm fine, Jayden," I said flatly. "You don't need to worry." "Mom, it's so dangerous for you to be out there alone. What if something happens again? Maybe you should come back." "Dad." "No." Nick's voice cut him off before he could finish. "You can talk to her, but leave me out of this." Jayden went silent for a moment, probably caught between loyalty and frustration. He gave up on trying to push that subject and instead started talking about everyday things, his school, what he'd had for dinner, a show he'd watched. It was casual, meaningless chatter, but he poured his heart into it like he was trying to keep me on the line with sheer willpower. I gave him half-hearted replies, not really sure what to say. But he didn't seem to mind. He just kept talking, chattering away like a little bird. It reminded me of when he was younger, when I found out someone at school had called him a bastard without a mother. I'd marched straight to that kid's parents, made sure they knew exactly what kind of damage their words could do, and then came home and held Jayden all night. I read him stories, tried to make him laugh. He had babbled on back then too, like he was desperate to drown out the silence with sound. Funny how the world turns. Back then, I gave him my all, and he barely noticed. Now, it's his turn, talking and talking, trying to win me back without even realizing he's doing it. Nick didn't say a word the whole time, but I knew he was nearby, listening. Once or twice, I could feel him on the edge of speaking, like his breath was caught behind unsaid words. But he never did. Jayden and I talked until well past midnight. Eventually, I was too exhausted to keep going, and gently hung up. The next morning, I decided to get some fresh air. But as soon as I stepped out of the hotel and rounded the corner, I saw them. Nick and Jayden standing just a few feet away. Jayden saw me first and lit up like it was Christmas morning. He sprinted over and threw his arms around me.
Mom.
You're here. We've been waiting for you forever. I frowned and looked past him to Nick. Why did you bring him here? I needed to talk to you, Nick replied with a sigh. But he insisted on coming along. I didn't have a choice. I didn't argue. I brought Jayden back to my hotel room to keep him out of the conversation, and then I followed Nick to a nearby cafe. We sat across from each other, coffee between us, the weight of unfinished conversations hanging in the air. I met his gaze and said flatly, "Okay, say what you came to say." He didn't hesitate. "About what you asked me last night. I've been thinking about it. And I want to tell you, seriously, that my answer hasn't changed. I still want to be with you." His voice was steady, but I could tell it cost him something to say the next part. I know I've always had a big ego. I hate being judged, hate being seen as anything less than perfect. And I've held my partners to those same standards. But people aren't perfect. I get that now. I can't change the past, and maybe I'll never get over all of it. But I do know this, I love you. And even if something really did happen last night, I'd still choose you. He leaned in a little. If anyone dares speak against you, I'll shut them down myself. I looked at him for a long time. His face was open, earnest, even a little hopeful. And yet, all I could do was let out a soft sigh. "And then what?" I asked quietly. That seemed to catch him off guard. He blinked, clearly not expecting that response. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what's next?" I clarified, voice calm but firm. "What exactly are you asking from me?" Nick shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I'm saying I want you back. I don't want a divorce. I want us to be together again." He reached across the table, trying to take my hand. I pulled away before he could touch me. His expression crumpled, but I stayed steady. "Nick," I said softly, "you already know I only married you because of the agreement with your mother. I never loved you. Everything I did for you and Jayden, it wasn't love, it was gratitude. I was repaying a debt. And even if you truly don't care what happened last night, it doesn't change the fact that I don't love you." His face went pale, like I'd slapped him. He sat frozen, the words clearly hitting harder than he thought they would. By the time he started to recover, I had already stood up and walked out. Back at the hotel, I found Jayden curled up on the couch. I handed him the toy I'd picked up for him on the way back and sat beside him. "Jayden," I said gently, "I'm leaving for another country. I need you to be good and stop giving your dad a hard time." He stiffened instantly, clutching the toy tighter. "But Dad said you were going to stay with me. Why are you leaving again? Can't you stay? I know I messed up before."
I'm sorry, Mom.
"I'll be better, I promise. I won't hurt you again."